I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV. Velocities in music, the best kept secret in music reviews. Tom, how often do we get to review music from an artist who heralds themselves from Australia?
Not
it's a
too
continent.
often.
It's a continent and a country. Did you know that?
It's crazy.
It's crazy. That's a cool
Yeah.
fact. A continent and a country.
I'm learning
They also
something
have
today.
the Great Barrier Reef. That's off the Australian coastline. They also make really good music. Gautier. We really liked Gautier last year, Making Mirrors, one of our favorite albums. And now Jagwar Ma. Jagwar Ma, their debut album, Howlin. Howlin. That's an interesting name for this album title. It's referenced a couple times in the lyrics. How would you describe Jagwar Ma's sound, Tom? I have a couple bands in mind for my opinion.
It's tough. For one band I would compare them to, I think they draw influence from, is Primal Scream, which is kind of a classic kind of dance rock band. They're very hard to pigeonhole, to put a genre on, but
That's fair.
they had some stuff in the early 90s that was great. They're still kicking butt now. They actually had an album come out this year even. This is a little bit more of a modernized version of that, and kind of where I'm going with this is that this is pop. This is uplifting, fun music. It's got kind of a dance edge to it. You can definitely move to it, but at the same time, it's not that just kind of kind of techno dance, I guess, if you will. Not that I have anything against that stuff, but I feel like this is moving towards almost more of a Brit-pop sound incorporated with that. I would say that a lot of the melodies on this album pull from Brit-pop artists such as Oasis and Blur. It's just got a very fun vibe, and it's really just kind of, that's the way the tracks are put together, you know?
If there's one artist I'd say that's out right now that they sound a lot alike, it's Yesayer. And previously I'd say Yesayer is one of those artists that it's like they're doing something, they have this originality to their sound that no other artist is matching. And I'd say Jagwar Ma is the first artist I've listened to in VIMTV's history, really, that comes close to matching what Yesayer has done. And really, Yesayer from like Odd Blood in 2010.
Yeah.
This is definitely more of a poppy dance album.
And that's where the difference comes in, because especially you look at Fragrant World, that was a darker album.
Absolutely.
There's not a whole lot of darkness here. It's very bright.
Tracks like Uncertainty and Come Save Me, those are very poppy, dancified tracks. And that's what makes this album soar, in my opinion, is the fact that you have these really uplifting, powerful dance songs that don't necessarily fall into the typical dance cliche. And really, these songs focus on an authenticity in the guitars, the vocals, the production. This album has this organic nature to it that just makes it flourish, I feel like. Where a lot of dance music, you get these stale beats, you get these stale synthesizers, stale synth melodies. It doesn't ever just invoke your soul. You never feel like you're really into something that's truly unique and original. And that level of authenticity is how you win over people. It's how you win listeners like Tom and I, who have heard a lot of music. It's how you surprise us and make us go, oh, this actually has some merit. Let's check out these new ideas. Jagwar Ma on Howlin, which as a debut album, anytime you hear a debut album as bold as Howlin, you get kind of excited. And I get kind of excited when I listen to this. Now, it's definitely not a perfect album. There's moments on this album where I'm like, well, this track is certainly a little bit weaker than others. But it doesn't ever feel like it's just a major drop-off.
And that's the thing for me. I think that any one of these tracks on a mix with other new albums, you know, songs from new albums that are coming out, any one of these tracks would stick out, would pop out at the listener with its energy, with its bold approach. But when you put them all together, it's all about how do they stick out from one another? How do you identify one track above any other track? And that's where it gets a little difficult. And part of that is actually a good point to the album because of the consistency and quality.
Yes.
But it's also kind of a hit against the album because if you don't find a way to make the tracks stick out from each other and have their own identity, then it shows that while you're consistent in quality, you're almost too consistent in sound. And that was something that I thought got a little bit old on this album. There were a few tracks I didn't like as much. I thought it sagged in the middle a little bit, particularly. Once it gets to like track 8, Man I Need, and track 9, Exercise, I felt like it was picked up a little bit for me. I would kind of nod off, and then I'd start paying attention again. I'd get back with the game and really finish this album strongly.
Yeah, track 9, Exercise, had a very much like an almost like Odelay Beck feel
Yeah.
to it. And throughout this album, you got a lot of 90s alternative
Definitely.
rock influences. Tom, you mentioned like the Britpop, the 90s pop slash rock scene earlier, and I totally get that vibe throughout this album. What I love about what Jagwar Ma is doing, and you know, whenever you hear, like when I hear an artist from Australia, I always think this is going to be eclectic, and these guys didn't let me down.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of different styles on here, predominantly from a lot of things that 90s alternative artists were doing, mixed together, but it's still polished and presented in a way that sounds original.
Yeah.
Particularly, I want to call out the vocalist, because the vocal hooks on this album really are what drew me into some of these tracks. The tracks that I thought were the clear standouts, those were the ones with the best vocal hooks, especially in the choruses. This isn't the most complicated music you've ever listened to, and it's definitely not going to be the most simple, but at the same time, it does a good job of finding that balance.
It hooks you in.
It does.
Because what gets me is that a lot of these, a lot of albums in the kind of dance genre, if you want to throw it in there, that's very broad, I will come out and say. But a lot of them, you know, while they're fun to listen to, maybe they're fun to dance to, they don't really get me on a true intellectual or emotional level.
Sure.
And I feel like this did satisfy both of those sides for me, because I could really pick apart how they were putting together these tracks, how they were arranging them, and at the same time, sometimes I felt like I didn't really need to think about how they were putting them together, because I just had so much damn fun just letting them seep into my mind, my soul, and just grooving along with them.
What would you give this album?
I'm giving it even 80.
You know what? That's a great score. I'm going to meet you there.
All right.
Go even 80 for this one, which is about what everyone else is talking about. It's where everyone else is putting. And you know what? That's fair, because that means they nailed this one. For a debut album, it's definitely worth your guys' listen. Glance over. This is an artist that we feel is going to be back again, so it's definitely good to familiarize yourself with Howlin as soon as possible. When you do, leave us a comment at www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. As always, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and let us know what other albums from 2013 you'd like to see us review. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.
How can